I just try to be more and more like Arnie. That's what I do.
Grow
Sorry.
your hair, and everything will change.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 102 of Palantir Weekly. We are here, 102 weeks of this thing. Got a lot to talk about this week. A lot of fun news that happened. Before we get into it, how are you guys doing? Vince, how was your week?
It was a pretty busy week for me, honestly. I had a hard time paying attention to Palantir news because I have so much happening in my own company. But luckily, I also have you guys, so you keep me on my toes. I loved your dissing Ross episode. That guy.
Oh, we'll talk about that. We got to talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. I keep myself back.
Arnie, how was your week?
I would say great. New week, new fun for very different reasons. And I would say Palantir will never let us sleep in a positive way.
That is true. Matt Money, how was your week?
Good, man. I'm getting ever closer to a new net worth goal. So I need to start thinking up new goals here in the new year. And I realized I hadn't gone through the dividend tracker in a while since like August timeframe. So I was going through that and looking at all the different changes. So it's a good time. It's a good time, and looking forward to a 2024. I think it's going to be a very bullish year for Palantir. I think it's going to be a bullish year for a lot of good companies. And I think we're going to hit the 5,000 club on the SPY. So really looking forward to it.
All right. Awesome stuff. Thank you, everybody, for being here in the chat. We got Nate here. We got Philip Rizzo. We got Peter Girardi. Thank you all for being here. Luke Francis, John. Let's get into a bunch of news we got to talk about this week. I think we'll start off with the main news of yesterday. $115 million Army Vantage extension on the contract. Original contract was $458 million in 2019. It was not a 100% probability we would win the fourth year. A lot of these contracts, they say this is the amount, these are the years, but you actually have to perform to get the awarded amounts at the end of the contracts. And so we did get that deal. A little bit of controversy. Louis De Palma, analyst from William Blair, said Palantir is likely not going to get it, or they told investors, look, it's not going to be the same type of deal, so you should be a little scared. Went from 19 to 17 on that news. Market really took it seriously, and we got the deal. Almost went back to $19 today. We touched 19. Now we're at like 18.20. And so we got the deal. Sham Sankar to call Louis De Palma out publicly. What were your guys' thoughts on this whole saga that's happened over the past couple of weeks? And I mean, here's the real question. Do you think in the future we don't get these types of contracts? Because that's what Louis' real point is, that these contracts are not going to happen again. We got it for the fourth year. Do you think they happen in the future? We'll start with Matt on this one. What do you think?
I just think it's inevitable. I think there's always this chat. There's just been continuous chat since 2021 when this company went direct listing onto the New York Stock Exchange. People just been chatting that there's, for some reason, just some unknown hate for the company. And I think Palantir just continues to prove people wrong. It's continued to demonstrate its need in the United States. It's demonstrated its need abroad. And I think, as everyone alluded to, even this gentleman talking poorly about how they're probably not going to get their Army deal, what happens? Of course, we continue to do well, and we continue to knock down deals, just like everyone thought we weren't going to get the NHS deal, just like everyone thought, all these different deals weren't going to go through. But in reality, it just goes to show that Palantir is becoming more and more of a brick and foundational piece of what is necessary to operate in the West these days, with how they're set up and their customizable software. And I think it's not the last we're hearing about Palantir and the Army as well. This contract will be expanded in the future. It might not be exactly for this particular purpose, but I guarantee other things will happen in the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or Space Force that are necessary for Palantir to be involved in.
Arnie, your thoughts on us landing $115 million deal?
Well, let me say first, thank you to this analyst that contributed to making the price, I would say, stupidly drop. Because I believe this analyst, the more he shares thoughts, the more he underscores the fact that he doesn't truly grasp the company. He has that kind of understanding where he knows 20% and believes he understands 130%, creating these weird situations. And I'll say it is reasonable to expect some risk from this, Yet at the same time, I believe he doesn't truly capture the dynamic of this contract, because true, as he was underscoring, the contract is now aiming toward open software infrastructure, meaning that it's not only Palantir providing the service, but actually the platform seeks other providers, meaning that
Multi-vendors. Yeah.
other vendors, so not only Palantir. But as I like to say, the devil is in detail, because if we actually look at the press release Palantir dropped, there was this sentence that changes everything. Can you share the screen, please?
Yeah.
Okay, in the press release, they said, with this open software infrastructure, the Army will be able to rapidly onboard and automate compliance for new software capabilities. Palantir continues to drive investment in this area through its FedStart program and Palantir Government Web Service initiative, which seeks to enable the government vision of a big tent, multi-vendor ecosystem, and a more reliant marketplace of commercial software entities supporting the mission of the Department of Defense. So what does it mean? It means that if Palantir is being paid for the core software infrastructure that powers third-party companies. With this, Palantir also helping these third-party companies actually work within this ecosystem of the government by providing services like FedStart, directly aiming at the compliance, but also how operationally companies can actually have the data ready to work with the government. And here comes the Ontology SDK, the new program that they shared that belongs to these Palantir Government Web Services, and Apollo that helps keep everything in compliance and updated. So what seems a negative, I would say, in reality is a net positive for Palantir, because if you remember, this stuff like Apollo and FedStart are actually based on usage in terms of pricing. So that creates a basis for having recurring revenues from the real platform in terms of subscriptions, and then the upside in terms of usage. So I'm actually very excited for this.
Okay, Vince, your thoughts on this whole saga?
Yeah, 2 points. One of them is if you're a Palantir shareholder, never listen to analysts. They have proven so many times that they don't know what the F that they're talking about. And it's us and, Arnie and your channel and, all the Palantir Finex people, Matt Money, who, are worth listening to as we deeply understand Palantir. So this just got reiterated, and every company has, I don't know if you noticed, like every time Tesla does a recall, mainstream media is all about how yeah, exactly. And every time Apple releases a new iPhone, I see articles of how this new iPhone is, not selling, and all the suppliers are, canceling orders, and then it somehow never ends up being true. And for Palantir, the FUD line seems to be that, the government is canceling them, and it never ends up being true. Then point number 2 is that for the US government, it doesn't make sense to have one of anything, to rely on one vendor of anything. This is why SpaceX cannot be, it will never be that basically the NASA budget gets transferred to SpaceX, and it's the same that the US software budget will not just be transferred to Palantir, because there is a non-zero chance. I think that, it's not what I think, but I'm saying that the chance is non-zero that Palantir can go rogue, or they can make bad decisions, bad hires, and it would cripple the government if they were the only vendors for the government. So I think that it's prudent what the US government is doing. And yeah, it's a good contract. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, $115 million, nothing to scoff at. The fact that we got it, I think, is really good. Even if the government is going to start doing multi-source procurement or multi-vendor procurement, I don't think that takes away from Palantir's moat. I mean, we've talked about JADC2 and all the different contracts they have to win. We talked about, Alex Karp wrote a letter about AI to the Congress this week, just in terms of all the different ways Palantir is implementing themselves in the U.S. government as the U.S. government spends more on AI. So I think there's a lot of government growth to be had. I was looking at some of the numbers. Q3 or Q2 2022, we hit the lowest growth rate of government revenue at 13% year over year. And that was down from like 50% like 5 quarters ago. And then the next quarter, Q3 2022, it jumped to 26%. So it doubled. And I went back to Karp's statements during those earnings calls, and he was like, look, sometimes we'll get a lot of government revenue. Sometimes we won't. But at the end, if you give us a decade, it will CAGR at upwards of 25, 30%. And I think we have to trust them here as well. Like if we know the government's going to be spending more, some of that will come to Palantir. It'll just take some time for it to ultimately get there.
Well, this actually means that it is when the government revenues seem to be very, very slow that there is a lot of potential for upside. We can think of it as a spring when we want to see that when it is compressed, not when it is very extended, because when it is very extended, actually, you're more exposed to the risk of seeing the slowdown.
Yeah, absolutely 100%. And so eventually I do think we will get a lot of government revenue for Palantir, right? We're going to end the year at like 1.2 billion in 2023. And that's going to grow. It's just going to take some time. It's probably not going to be a straight linear line that investors are expecting.
So I want to. Sorry, I was just going to reiterate something that kind of Vince talked about, because I've heard a lot of people talk about how analysts and traditional media is getting a lot of this stuff wrong. And I think what a lot of people fail to recognize is the perspective and also the MO of a lot of these news sources, which is to generate revenue through advertising, through clicks, and through all those opportunities that they have. And so they'll provide a side or a bias to an article just to be able to get the views through the door, just to make sure that people are continuing to either use their services or to at least get some sort of perspective out there that might be controversial. You know, if you think about it, anytime you write something extremely negative, you're going to have the entire retail investor community clicking on that article for Palantir. So you're going to have me looking at it. You're going to have Amit bringing it up. You're going to have a bunch of people writing and making content around that article, which is going to generate clicks. So you have to think when anybody's writing something, this doesn't necessarily go towards traditional media, doesn't necessarily have to go towards Palantir as well. But anytime somebody says anything about any stock or anything, you have to recognize who's in their pocket, who's providing their dinner, who's bringing home the bacon for them, and what do they gain by saying what they're saying. And it could very well be that they're a bull or something of the like, but you have to recognize perspectives in this market, and perspectives in any market are truly going to be something that's beneficial for you to recognize and pull, right? And understand going forward, because not everyone's going to be aligned. And you have to think sometimes these guys, when they're in certain companies, like say you work for Goldman, or say you can't buy Palantir stock. You might have to buy the S&P 500. If you work for Ernst & Young, you work for some of these consulting companies, they might be focused specifically on, well, we do work for X, Y, and Z people. We can't necessarily buy their stock. So we just have to buy the S&P 500 and call it a day. So you have to recognize is like these guys might not actually have any skin in the game when they're writing these articles. And they're being told by their higher ups, who could be a billionaire, who hates Alex Karp, because there's 240 billionaires that run the world. And they say, you know, just like we always get back to how everyone in traditional media was against Twitter when Elon was taking it over, right? Why are they against Twitter, right? They're against Twitter, not because they hate media or anything like that. They hated it because Elon was picking it over. And of course, that's going to provide challenge to them. So you have to think the same exact underlying thing is happening across a multitude of places. It's all literally just.
Well, what do you think is Louis De Palma's motivation at that point? A different SaaS company that they're invested in, or?
It could just be driving views. You don't know. I mean, people now have noticed him and he's come up several times. He's trying to just establish this. And look what happened. He got called out by Sham himself, and that article got views.
I'm not crazy for thinking that the CTO of a $50 billion company calling out a little analyst is a big deal, right? Like Sham Sankar is not supposed to be calling out Louis De Palma. So like Louis De Palma is saying this egregious, sloppy analysis and getting Sham's response. I think to your point, Matt, that's what he wanted at the end of the day, or maybe that's what he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at all these Tesla bears and people that are making all these things. It's like, that's what they're trying to do, right? They're just trying to get views. And You know,
So
look
you're
when
saying Gordon Johnson just wants to be on CNBC all the time, and
Yes.
that's why he's a Tesla bet. He's
Yes.
doing a good job.
I mean, dude, he's made a lot of money off it. He's admitted his clients want him to say bad things about Tesla. He's admitted that, you know?
I mean,
Wow.
maybe that's the value proposition exactly. I was exactly going to say what Vince said. I thought the Gordon Johnson of Palantir was the city guy, but Tyler. But I think this Louis is capturing the opportunity better because so far, like we all know about this guy.
Yeah, Palantir Hotline brings up a good point. He could have high-profile clients at William Blair that are short Palantir. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Because again, we're fine with bears. We are bearish on Palantir many times, but like, you know, there's a certain line between bears and just egregious analysis. Go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say, Matt, I think, has hit the nail on the head that these guys, they don't have any skin in the game, and they have to write articles, they have to get clicks, and as opposed to us, I mean, I'm not going to say we're not guilty of trying to get clicks, but I think that we have a lot of skin in the game, and that's what makes the difference. That, you know, when you put a substantial amount of your portfolio in a company, then you will damn make sure that your research is on point. And these guys are like, hey, we need an article. You have a day, you know, and then that's what you get.
Yeah, you're not going to write an article on AT&T, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's facts.
But guys, you are touching really the dynamic that made me say, okay, I don't want to be an analyst any longer. Like my long-term goal is to invest. And I reached the point where I felt if I'm an analyst for more years, rather than becoming a better investor, I become a worse investor because as an analyst, your job is not to be right, but making reports. And the way you actually make a career, like I was in a very small studio, but the way you make a career in banking, again, is by getting yourself known and having the clients perceive you're pro more than you're actually being able to make money with your skill. As an analyst, as an investor, or you're right or you're wrong, so you can't be wrong.
I wanna dive deeper on that for a second there, Arnie. I mean, were you forbid from buying some individual securities because of what you were doing for specific companies?
No, because my studio was extremely small. Like I was the first employee of a four people studio, so firm. So it's called a financial boutique. But when I was working in the bank, I was prevented from touching any stock, single stock. Same when I was working in asset management. Also there, like there I could buy stuff, but I needed to disclose. And look, the first week I was working there, I went straight to the compliance and I said, okay, what can I actually do? And I asked around, my colleagues never did that. And the compliance officers told me, you know, I've been working here for 10 years and nobody ever asked how to buy single stocks. And it was possible.
All right. Let's move on to the next topic. Mr. Ross Gerber had some words to say about Palantir. Let's watch this 2 minutes, and then I want to get everyone's reaction to it. Some of you have seen it, some of you haven't, but it'll be nice to take a look at his updated thoughts on Palantir. This is the same person who called Palantir Nazi Germany back in December of 2021.
Ross, we need an update on Palantir.
Oh, people just love getting me to talk about
they
stuff.
They love it. I can't even tell you how many things.
So I watched this interview with Alex Karp
Palantir
the other day, and if anybody can watch an interview with this guy and not be freaked out, he's literally like scary, you know?
I want to see it.
Dude, you should see this guy. Well, he's like one of these, like, I'm fiercely American,
right?
You know, like we fight terrorists, and basically he was like, these kids on the campuses are terrorists and will never get a job. And basically my company tracks all the data. I know who all these kids are and they'll never work again, you know, kind of thing. And I was like, geez, you know, this guy, you know, scary. So Palantir, why would I want to invest in that again? I don't know. I mean, they make softwares for companies.
Let me see if someone listed.
I think they make software for companies and people to be.
Are you ready to buy Palantir? They've become an AI leader.
Well, they like to say that, but their application is a government application.
I know there's got to be more comments on Palantir. I'm trying to.
No, it's definitely an AI play. but it trades at a very high multiple. They don't make money, and the insiders are constantly selling stock. If you want to see insiders making money, look at insider sales at Palantir. So whenever I see that, it's always a warning sign.
Right.
So Palantir guys are just cashing out left and right. I don't know if you noticed that.
So meet Kevin added Palantir to his ETF.
Oh, did he?
portfolio.
For pricing power, they have pricing power. It's like, do you even know how much it costs to use Palantir? I think he has Tesla still as his top holding, and they have no pricing power at all. In fact, they have negative pricing power, right? So it's like, who has pricing power?
You need a new internet.
Nvidia's got pricing power. Jeez, they could charge anything for a chip, right?
I mean,
You're on mute, guy.
Sorry, I was muted. I said the rest of it's not even important. He's like, Nvidia's price power. I'm like, okay, so why don't you go full port Nvidia? Like, what type of fucking... And then on insider sales, Jensen Huang has sold like $200 million worth of stock in the past 8 weeks. So anyway, what are your guys' thoughts to what he had to say? Let's start with Vince. Let's go with you.
Matt, you can go ahead if you want.
Okay, Matt's got a lot to say. Let's go with Matt. Matt's got a lot to say. Let's go with Matt.
Well, I was just going to say, I truly value people more when they say, I don't know. And he doesn't know, but he's just talking to talk, right? And so, when somebody asks me a question at work, or somebody asks me a question about a stock, what do you think about XYZ? I'll say, I don't know. But he's just trying to find out little things that he knows. He might have watched a video or two, but he hasn't done any due diligence to know. So he should have shut the hell up.
Real quick. I sympathize with this because I said the same thing about Square. When Square was at 39, I didn't know anything about Square or Block, but I was like, this company sucks. And then it goes to 65, and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that because it makes me look stupid, but I really didn't get what the company did. I just said they suck because the stock was down, and now I look dumb, right? So I know Philip Rizzo is going to appreciate me saying this. So it's a good point, right? But I didn't call Square Nazi Germany, and so it's a little bit of a stretch. Vince, go ahead.
Yeah. On the All In podcast, Chamath said that the people with Trump derangement syndrome had this really weird disease that they're like very intelligible people. And then Trump can say something and then it's bad just because, Trump has said it. And I think that this guy has a carp derangement syndrome, and he can listen to an interview. And it's like listening to your wife when you say something and then they understand it in a completely different way. And then he's like, he said, I'm fiercely American and these college kids are Nazis. Which interview was he watching? He just has this KTS, KDS, the carb derangement syndrome kicking in. And somehow like he cannot intelligibly look at this company. And frankly, it makes me makes me question his judgment on other companies that he's investing in, because he's like a child when it comes to this company.
Not Vince. Arnie, your thoughts on what Ross said?
I think the more he opens his mouth, the more he embarrasses himself. That's a straight answer. Because actually he has been talking about Palantir for quite a long time. You also made the reaction to it. I made an entire video of 6 minutes of Gerber talking about Palantir.
I forgot you did make that video. Yeah, I remember.
And what's worse is that at a certain point he says, I don't know what Palantir does. It's like, okay, but you've been talking for it for 5 minutes. And I already like, at Carp, like he goes personal. Like, look at Carp. He looks like the devil. Like, what if we actually make the same of him? Look at him. He looks like an idiot. I mean, that's my thought.
You have a good American accent, bro. When you want to be American, you have a good one.
I learned it from you, guy.
Yeah, no, he's called him the devil. Says, why do you think he said he's scary? Any thoughts on that? Why do you guys think he's scary? Why do you guys think he said he's scary?
Well, I don't disagree with that. With certain pictures, Carp can be intimidating. But I believe that the moment you go with a personal attack, you are actually you lose credibility. Like, okay, I went directly against him, but for a good reason, I would say, because like. This is not the kind of judgment you would expect from a fund manager. You would expect a judgment like that from a clown that makes fun of people.
Yo, Arnie, you are on a roll today, bro. I don't know what's going on. Matt,
I think people think he's scary because he's telling the truth. people are scared of the truth. That's why a lot of people and the politicians don't talk about it. They'll dance around a question forever. So you have Karp, who's giving these truthisms about how he's saved on plenty of terrorism attacks in Europe and many others, and has helped the West out of many binds, getting people out of Afghanistan when they decided to leave in a drop of a hat, and helping with the pandemic. And so I think that's why he's scared, is because he's not putting color and what am I saying? He's not trying to dumb down what he's going after, and he's being honest about his purpose. That scares a lot of people.
I agree. Vince, any last words to add on this?
No, you guys said it all. I loved Arnie's comment. I think it's the banging of the table that is very scary for some.
Yeah, I go ahead, Arnie.
1 minute of the video.
Yeah, go ahead, play it. I forgot you made this. It was a great video.
Alex Karp is one of the most evil people. Just look at him. Just look at this guy. He looks like the devil.
I support American strength, but I do not think we should be outsourcing our CIA activities to a private company. Now, I don't want to go into it any more than that, because they attacked me, and they attacked me viciously again after my last comment. Okay, but that's the way this world works. If you want to know some shit that you don't really want to know, so I can't talk about it. I literally just can't talk about it. It's just not worth putting my family at risk. So wow.
So Palantir might say that they don't really hold the data or sell the data. They're just servicing their clients. The government's own and collect the data hypothetically.
Isn't that what the German soldiers said when they were burning people? that Hitler, they were just doing a job. They had no idea that they were burning humans. I think it is literally the worst company in the world.
So okay, guys, I believe that's enough.
Yeah, I mean,
his family was attacked. I would really want him to elaborate on this. That's such a dubious comment for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Ross Gerber. That's his thoughts on Palantir. Let's move on to some more fun news. We got a bunch of deals this week. So we got a partnership with a company called Plascred. They're a plastic environmental waste management company, trying to do some innovative stuff on the waste management front for plastic. We got a 5-year extension with UniCredit, which is one of the largest banks in Europe, one of the headquarters in Italy. We got this $115 million deal, obviously. We got the Fujitsu partnership last week. So we've gotten a lot of more commercial deals over the past, really to end out Q4. I think Plascred and UniCredit were really interesting. And then HISA last week as well, the Horse Integrity Safety Authority. What are your thoughts on all the deals we've been getting over the past week? A lot of international commercial stuff, Germany, Canada for Plascred, and then Japan. And any thoughts specifically on UniCredit in the financial sector or Plascred? You can take it anywhere you want.
Well, I start from UniCredit because that is not a random bank. That is the second most important bank in Italy. And it has a peculiar story because across the years, UniCredit was considered as troublesome as Deutsche Bank. I was in 2014, 15, and every other day there was this, the crisis of Italian banks, because Italian banks, especially UniCredit, had a lot of problems back then. And right now, UniCredit is resurging as a phoenix. And I believe there is a little bit of contribution also from Palantir, because they've been working together for more than 5 years so far. I remember it was written, we are partners since 2018, and UniCredit is actually changing a lot. So they changed again the CEO, and now this further extension that goes to all the company, and that was underscore, it is a company which has an insane amount of assets. That is very significant to me. Because if they can prove at a large scale that Palantir can provide value, and it seems they're providing value, I remember once a friend told me that he had a friend working at UniCredit, that they were kind of skeptical of this software. There were some doubts that UniCredit could keep using it. Maybe they wanted to develop on their own. I saw this actually as a very, very, very strong sign that Palantir actually delivers, and clients are happy to expand.
Yeah, 5-year partnership extension is good. That means they want to work with them till 2028.
And I think that the more they build, the more they are entrenched into all their branches, the stronger the Palantir position actually is. Sorry, if I jump back a little bit to the other Vantage contract we spoke about, because I think this is a detail that is worth mentioning that can help us understand when we talk about other partnerships, contracts, and so on. In the press release of the Vantage program, they said the Army is going to pay Palantir for 115 million per year, and every year this Palantir platform unlocks around $700 million of deobligated funds in saving. I honestly, I don't really understand what this deobligated funds means, but we consider it as a saving because that's the KPI they shared. And if we do the math, so the ratio between the two, it's like the Army pays 15% of this value unlocked.
Right.
My speculation, and this is what I would love to hear your feedback on, and what we can actually track going forward, is can we consider this as a take rate? So we discussed that a lot of time. The more Palantir unlocks value, the more it can be paid. And I would say this number hints to me that the 10-20% take rate that we discussed in the previous episode actually has some ground. What do you think about this?
Essentially on the idea of savings that they're able to give to their clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go on this, then you guys can go. I tend to agree. When I read that line in the PR today, that they've saved $4 billion over the past year, $700 million a year, and they're only paying $400 million for the contract. And again, you have to ask yourself, why are they getting those savings? It's because they're more efficient. Like, it's not a joke when we say more efficiency drives better margins. That's real. And I think UniCredit, they're not even talking about AIP. They're talking about just basic data-driven decision-making for policy, risk mitigation, etc. It's working. And if it's working and they're getting savings, why wouldn't you keep paying for it?
I can tell you that the Italian banks are heavily beneficent and are run on Excel.
Vince, Matt, any thoughts on commercial partnerships this week?
To be honest, the happiest I was about the Canadian plastic company, and the horse one. It's too early in the morning. I forgot both of their names. And the reason why, because both of them came from boot camps. And I believe that one of them came from a boot camp in the fall. And, I'm speculating and wondering if they announce all the deals. So I think that there might be customers that they get from the boot camps, but we don't get these press releases from them. But this is, an indication that the strategy is really, really, okay, it's very nice with the Army contracts and the other, when they continue the contracts, but it doesn't add to the growth of Palantir. It just means that they continue to deliver. But for us investors, the sexiest part is when, the AIP is working. And I was really, really happy to, it's a proof how much the sales cycle is shortening, that, AIP is already now bringing in revenue. We are basically a quarter after the fall quarter. So that made me very excited.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd like to add is, Arnie specifically mentioned the cost savings that the Army has realized. Sorry, Army has realized. And that's just, if you read the Forrester report that shows and goes into depth what basically Palantir is able to do in order helping their clients, it's obvious that the efficiencies that are made and the cost savings that are made are for every company through multiple of the surveys that they did, that Forrester kind of reported in their kind of number one AI sort of report that they did. It was, I don't remember if it was 2022 or earlier this year. It's it's clear. But to me, sometimes these things go more than just monetary value. And what this means to me is when you think about the Army, you think about potential lives that were saved in that respect. When you think about the NHS deal, yes, there was efficiencies made and money was saved, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people's lives. And what dollar value do you put on top of that?
Mm-hmm.
You can't put that in a spreadsheet. You could say, okay, well, we're able to cycle more clients and stuff through, but at the end of the day, more and more people are being saved. More and more people are living longer because of the tools that Palantir is building from scratch to be able to support these businesses. And I think that that's something that no matter what you do at the end of the day, even if you put this on a monetary value piece, if you think about a purpose-led organization, you think about a purpose-led world, that's where Palantir kind of comes in, right? And I think that that sometimes is hard to quantify at the end of the day, but that's really what Palantir is truly trying to go after at the end of the day. When it comes to working in the oil and gas industry, they're trying to make sure that people get cheaper, better, affordable energy that's more sustainable. They're focusing on getting more patients seen. And that's not going to show up always as dollars saved. That's going to show up as just being a better world at the end of the day. And that's where Palantir fits in.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Let me put this comment out there and see what you guys think on this. I think the Plaskred partnership, the HISA partnership, I don't think those are necessarily big deals for Palantir. I don't think they're making bank on those. But I do think that's an innovative way of bringing AIP to some place like horses or to plastic recycling companies that we haven't seen before. Do you think there's a part of them kind of doing a little bit of, we'll take a really small deal here, but if this works, we can expand this to much more larger verticals? Because eventually, maybe BP or these other energy companies will want to do plastic removal one day, and Palantir will have experience.
I think there is both two-side angle on this. On one side, there is just the company maybe is pushing, they want to disclose that. But on the other side, also Palantir is like, with every press release, they also want to underscore something. And for instance, here with these new partnerships, what I found interesting is what Vince underscored, that some of these clients actually come from the bootcamp. And I don't remember which was, if it was the plastic or the horse racing, but explicitly said we participated to a bootcamp and now we are an AIP customer. And then there's also the network side. For instance, there was this chart shared. Very basically Canadian Railroad is actually entrenched with this Plaskred company. They are a partner, and this is something that was mentioned by RC on Twitter. Please share my screen. Okay.
There you go.
So you can see here that it is, in my opinion, it is really great when we see a company that is a Palantir client actually being partnered with another client, because it can be that the introduction to this was from an existing customer, and I would make another shout out to Lord Grimm, who found this, which is probably one of the most important pictures we have been seen so far, because at a Christmas event, they shared this picture of Palantir successes. They made 414 bootcamps, 634 organizations with over 1K participants. These numbers are just insane, thinking that it is half year they are basically doing this stuff. And they are improving and making them, they're becoming faster, they can organize more, bigger. And the simple hint is that, Lucas, we can consider these numbers as the Palantir capacity to acquire new customers. And if they made these bootcamps with 600 organizations in half year, it is not out of the world to think that they could replicate this in the first half of 2024, in the second year, and going forward, which changes completely the dynamic we have been seeing so far of Palantir acquiring like 30 customers, 40 at most per quarter. Potentially, if all these bootcamps are targeting external potential customers, we could really see a ramp up in the client acquisition that could change dramatically the numbers for Palantir.
Yeah, the 414 boot camps, that's up from 325, which is what Sham said a month ago, right? Or not a month ago,
right.
2 weeks ago. So it's working. I think the progress is happening there. Now the question is just, can it continue to keep going in the future? Last thing I want to talk about is, and if anyone has any questions in the chat, please put it out, because you guys can, we will answer some of your questions if you have any specifics to Palantir or just in general. Snowflake is approaching a $70 billion valuation right now. The market's really giving Snowflake some love. Matt, I saw your face right there. Let's have you go first on this. The Fed said they're going to cut interest rates. Palantir didn't do anything. And my argument is, well, Palantir's up 200%, so we can't complain. But Snowflake said, whoop, we'll just keep going. So what are your thoughts on Snowflake approaching 70 billion? And what do you think it means for Palantir's multiple?
I mean, I think it's stretched, just like I thought Palantir was stretched when it was kind of approaching 50 million, or 50 billion, sorry. But I think also Snowflake's been on a bit of a retracement over the past year or so, just based off of the fact that interest rates have risen. So I don't know, with the end of interest rates rises and the potential for cuts, maybe everyone thinks that it's going to go on a massive run. Maybe they don't think that it's going to shrink to a 35% revenue growth. They think that maybe it's going to increase back to 45 or 50%. I personally think it's premature. But who am I to say, right? In terms of revenue, they're ahead of Palantir. So that's all I got to say. I don't know.
Arnie, your thoughts?
I like this rivalry with Snowflake, but in reality, I don't think it is nice to track, to comment, but at the end of the day, I think they are in a very distinct path. And I would say Snowflake seems ready to be fighting for survival, because their core business is not only slowing down, it is natural. It happens as it grows. But I already see them struggling with a lot of M&A just to stay up. And eventually they will make well. But you see, I'm happy to see the market reacting to interest rates. Palantir not reacting, I consider it as a good sign, paradoxically, giving us an opportunity space. Because look, this guy, if rates go down and the entire sector, the entire SaaS sector becomes interesting again from the eyes of institutional investors, we would see multiple expansion. This was underscored also by the latest All-In podcast that, hey guys, like the software recession has already happened. Like what we suffered last year was actually the software equivalent of 2008, like where the entire sector completely got destroyed. And not like outside the tech world, people don't really talk about it because it's not as a spread as a bank crisis or a consumer crisis. But the soft sector actually struggled a lot last year. And David Sachs, and that was confirmed by the data by Altimeter, they shared, look, the software business is actually rebounding. They've been seeing that also in their boards. And if we couple this with declining interest rates, the strong signal is, okay, things now can really accelerate again, because what is beneficial for software is companies spending more into projects, IT projects, because when the interest rates are lower, it is easier to justify an investment in IT, because it is easier to get more value. So rather than focusing too much on Snowflake per se, I would put more weight on the dynamic of the sector, where also Snowflake belongs to. And I would I'm actually very encouraged to the dynamic going forward, because the interest rates are low, companies are willing to spend more, and the multiples, even if they are relatively high, let's say Palantir at a 15x sales is not a multiple that you can say is low, is relatively low compared what it could potentially be if rates keep decreasing from here.
I agree. Guys, sorry, the fire alarm's going around my house right now. I have no idea why. So Arnie,
You are
talk
too
about
hot.
something for the next 5 minutes. Podcast is yours.
Be safe, my guy.
Shouldn't you evacuate from your house, Amit?
Dude, I don't even know why it's going off. No one's cooking it. It's like, let me investigate this.
Be
but-
safe. Be safe. Go, 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 go. Never know.
So now we can take over. This is Palantir Weekly without Amit, guys. So
What do you think about Snowflake, Vince? Like, does
I'll
that
do-
impact you anyway? Like, are you following it?
Okay, it's off for now, I think. It's
No.
so weird, bro. It just started. Look, now it's back on. There's no fire in the house. Like, maybe Arnie's analysis was so hot. Like, it. Look,
exactly. This
Now
show
it's
is on
back.
fire, Amit.
Yeah. All right, I'll be back.
So I'll do the opposite of Ross Gerbert and say I don't know. I don't follow this company so closely. But the thing I know that they're not gap profitable yet, and they're copying the boot camps. And I know that they're going after, like, I think that they're having a bite at this from a completely different angle than Palantir, because as far as I understand, like, they go after the small customers and they try to go up, whereas Palantir goes like to the biggest of the biggest and then tries to go down. And I really agree with what you said, Arnie, that it's more like, what makes me feel really, really good is more that the software recession is over and the companies are willing to spend more on software budgets, and that bodes well for any company in this business, including Palantir. So I'm very bullish about 2024.
Matt, do you agree?
What was the question? Sorry, I got distracted by the fire alarms and everything.
The fact that is not really Snowflake per se that matters, is more the context. If we have a combination of lower interest rates combined with companies actually willing to spend more due to lower interest rates and relatively low multiples on the software side, an average, even if 15x sales is not a multiple that we can really say, okay, is a low multiple. It is relatively low, as all the multiples of the software companies are still very low compared with what we have been seeing in the past years.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of thought right now that we're in the beginning of a new tech bull cycle, or just a bull cycle in general, knowing that interest rates are going to get cut. And so I think with that, a lot of the slowdown that was observed in late 2022, early 2023 with Snowflake, I think will potentially be removed, or at least we'll hear about what they think in the 4Q earnings call. But I think for now, it might be a little bit overdone, but at the same time, who am I to say? And there's a lot more analysts that focus more on Snowflake than I do personally. So we'll see what happens, but I still think that they're going to see a massive slowdown in their total revenue year over year, probably in the low 30s to high 20% for next year personally.
Why? Like, why do you expect this slowdown? Like, just a matter of scale, because now they are exceeding the 2 billion revenues, or more a structural problem you see in terms of the business structure?
Now Matt's fire. What's going on? Look, it's back. It was gone. Now it's so weird, bro.
Did you see this comment that it's because Kelly entered the chat?
What did Kelly say? What did she say?
No. People were saying that your fire alarm is going off because Kelly has entered the chat.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Sorry, what was your follow-up, Arnie? Sorry, I missed it.
Like you mentioned that you expect Snowflake to gradually decrease in terms of revenue growth. So slowing down. I wonder why. Is that something you have been seeing from work, talking about potentially not willing to use too much data in terms of storage?
I mean, no, I think that it's just been observed, like just how Palantir's growth has slowed down, right? I think they're just a few years behind us in terms of their slowdown. So 2 years ago, they had 70% year-over-year growth. This year, they're forecasting 37% year-over-year growth. And so it could just be the part of, large numbers kind of starting to play in, even though 2.5 billion is not that large of a number. But I'd anticipate or be very surprised if they show up next year and have a greater than 37% year-over-year growth rate for next year. And I guess we're going to find out a lot about Palantir's fiscal year 2024 outlook, as well as Snowflake's here. I guess in the late Jan, early February timeframe. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see if they really see this large step change in growth rate, because they have been slowing down massively. And before they were at 70%, just 2 years ago, they were in the triple digits, which is when they kind of started the IPO and everyone was freaking out. They just came off of a triple digit revenue growth year. And so everyone's thinking that, they were going to eat Palantir's lunch, and here they are slowing down just like Palantir. So, hopefully we see a resurgence in terms of Palantir's revenue growth going forward, and Snowflake continue to decrease into the low 30s, if not high 20s%, and maybe they'll meet in the middle. Fingers crossed.
Since we are mentioning about the growth, and we know how important the growth is for these kind of companies, and the Snowflake so far has been slowing down dramatically from 50% to around 30%, which is still great. But the comparison with Palantir seems natural on this side, as both companies rely a lot on the growth to justify their valuation. And I found interesting this comparison between what Palantir needs to report as commercial revenues in aggregate, and what is the, let's call it, adjusted number from removing the SPACs. That should give us a better sense of, okay, if we exclude the inorganic growth, and SPACs are inorganic because they gave money to the SPACs, and SPACs after that money were willing to use that money to pay for Palantir. So they created a distortion that initially, when this SPAC saga started, they created a very strong revenue growth for the commercial side, even exceeding 50%. And we can see this spike over here, what I call the SPAC boost. But after that, now these SPACs, rather than contributing positively, they started contributing negatively. And rather than having a plus from having SPACs, right now we are having a SPAC drag, how we call it. And the real growth, if we exclude these SPACs, seems to be right now at 34%, which is actually stronger than Snowflake. Do you think this chart is actually set to keep accelerating, therefore destroying Snowflake in terms of appealing? Or we should actually expect, okay, this 34% is just an outlier, maybe due to this drop we got here last year, so the comparison is a little bit off. So let's say we need to project this excluding SPACs commercial revenue growth. What kind of line would you project from here?
It's a very good question, because I'm very curious about what's the close rate of the boot camps. Because if they have done 660 organizations this year, and most of it, mind you, was in, I think, this quarter or maybe even Q3, because they started doing 70, 80 boot camps in November, right? So they have been really, really ramping up the boot camps. So basically, if we look at that, then next year they might have 1,000 boot camps with 1,500 organizations. If you just extrapolate out, and what's the close rate of such an event? Because if I would guess, because it's not cold calling, so it has to be higher than single digits. Normally, the in-person closing rate is usually between 20, 30, 40%. Because you do have to, like, if for you to send a guy to an AIP bootcamp, even though the AIP bootcamp is free, it's not free to send your employee, and it's not free to pay your employee, and so you have to have some sort of an interest in Palantir. Like, I don't think that they would send or they would participate if there was zero interest, right? And if we take a close rate of 20%, that means that if they have done, what is it, 250 boot camps, then that should result in 50 new customers per quarter. And it's hard for me to like not see a re-acceleration of revenue from this. So I would think that it should logically accelerate from here.
So, all right, guys, real quick, I gotta go because I gotta go help downstairs. You guys can keep the pod going. I'll just end it when you guys are done. So whenever you guys are done, Arnie, Matt, anyone can just end the pod officially, and then I'll end it on StreamYard.
Okay.
All right, guys. Sorry, guys. I gotta get a ladder. We gotta fix a bunch of stuff. Bye.
Are you on fire?
No, we're not on fire, but there's some shit I gotta do. So,
okay.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. We'll still keep this going. Bye.
Okay, so if I understand currently, it is really important for the next quarters to try to have a sense of, okay, you go do the bootcamp, you collect a lot of organizations, but is that actually entering as new clients, as we mentioned? Because I would say so far, I'm disappointed by the number of new customers we are acquiring on the commercial side. It's not that bad, but 20, 30 customers, which is in line with last year. I would say at this point, I would expect it to be at least at around 50 or so. And I'm really curious to see, okay, but after all these bootcamps, are we actually seeing an increasing number of clients? Because if not, it means you are running the bootcamps. All the clients are happy, but at the end of the day, they don't close deals. Matt, what kind of line do you think we should expect from here for the commercial side, excluding the SPACs, so only organic growth?
I mean, if you listen to last quarter's earnings call, they said that they fully anticipate that year-over-year growth for customers is going to be over 100% in the U.S. commercial space, right? So I think maybe are you frustrated more about the European commercial space that's dragging it down to say 30-odd%, or in terms of revenue growth, say 30-odd%? I guess this is kind of my question in kind of rebuttal. I mean, to me, I've always been knowing that this large influx of commercial customers, or just customers in general, wasn't immediately going to lead to revenue. And so I'm not necessarily surprised by that. I think that there's going to be a 12 to 18 month lag when you really start to see an influx of revenue starting to come from these new customers. And so to me, I wouldn't really have been expecting, other than what we've seen with the NHS deal and continuation of other normal contracts that we've seen kind of announced throughout 2023 and late 2022. I honestly wasn't really expecting too much of an influx of revenue to start spiking back in to the high 20s, low 30s until second quarter of next year. So that's just based off the fact that we released, or we, meaning Palantir, released AIP, less than 6 months ago at this point. So, or just over 6 months ago, I guess, if you're thinking about it that way. But so to me, I still think we have a little bit of time before you really start to get harsh. But I think
there is no reason to be disappointed for now. Maybe it's just there are a lot of pilots in process that don't make them really record as customers.
Yeah, and I also think, like, when you think about this, and I think you guys alluded to it earlier, so I'll just reiterate. It's like when I was onboarded 5 years ago, it was a very big undertaking by the organization, where it was almost like a thou shall work with Palantir and thou shall, figure this out. Versus maybe the new model will be start at $1 million contract, work with 1 or 2 engineers at Palantir and grow that. And it's going to be an NDR, net dollar retention game going forward, where you start off at say $1 million and you try to grow that by 30-40% per annum. And that's really the thought process, because we started off with changing our entire operating system, and that was a huge undertaking. I mean, for those of you that know, I mean, it was one of the largest deals that Palantir has. So it's, in that respect, I mean, my bias is it's going to take time for it to really start to pay any sort of real fruit. And yes, you could start to see results day one, but in order for it to be truly company moving and company altering, I think it's going to take 12 to 18 months, because you have to get things. All these companies are literally, majority of the time, decades old. And to be able to move those ships, it's like trying to steer a cruise liner when you're headed towards an iceberg, right? You're trying to steer the Titanic away from all these fates that they've been kind of running towards, and now you're just getting to so it's like, I think that these are kind of the Trojan horses that everyone's been making memes about. So anyway, that's just my personal thought.
If I read through the line of what you said, is like the original Palantir of years ago really required a massive agreement from the management and a lot of people to just actually even start. So that created a lot of friction, because you needed to involve almost all the people in the company to do that. So obviously very hard to just get even one customer. And I wonder, since you work in a big organization, how do you think it is actually easy to send a person for a boot camp? Is that like Vince said, okay, these Palantir guys seem interesting, they're making a boot camp. How easy do you think an employee, like a big organization, can send out people to test it? Is just okay, good event, go and try, or in order to get to the event they already need to have some work they need to prepare, so they just need to be propense to actually do that?
I think the benefit will still be for Fabric, and the benefit will still be for a Snowflake, because those are not company altering products. Those are efficiency products. And so the thing is that I think still in the medium term, those sorts of products, which are easy to digest, and it won't have to admit that people's processes and things are wrong, will ultimately win. So the thing that I think will still be difficult for Palantir is the fact that you're literally changing how your company operates, generally speaking, utilizing some of these products. And so I think it might be easy to say, well, we'll try it on this one legacy system. But I think the thing that Palantir has continued to get in fights with a bunch of organizations is some companies don't actually want to change, because sometimes when you change and you make things so efficient, that means people's jobs get lost at the end of the day sometimes. And so what I think people are going to be afraid of, and what I've observed personally through my adventures with Palantir, is it allows things to make things so efficient and systems to be set up so appropriately that your data organizations and your IT departments might shrink a little bit. And so, it's then focused around, how do we utilize Palantir to help support us? And, I kind of might be speaking out of turn with respect to how our data organization has changed personally, but I've just noticed how drastically it's been focused towards working with the data streams that come in directly through our contractors and directly into the Palantir systems. And of course, there's still legacy systems that are not Palantir ready or Foundry ready, and you can't upload those things like images and seismic and stuff like that. But I still think that it's going to take a strong individual that cares more about doing the right thing than being selfish and wanting to save their own job. And I think that is, probably where I think that in 5 years or so, Fabric and Snowflake will have incredible failures and mass exodus of people moving towards a Palantir, because I think the poop will eventually come out and the proof will be in the pudding, because those are strictly at the moment efficiency tools, and I don't truly see them as things that will move people away. And I know that didn't specifically answer your question, but I think that there's a lot of intercompany politics associated with transitioning people to these operating systems. It's not just a piece of software that you just like, well, we'll pick it up and, call it a day. It's like, no, you literally have to rebase things from end to end to make it the most efficient thing as possible. I mean, when you look at those graphics that Palantir creates of like the data streaming coming in, and then you have the integration layer and the layer that you can kind of like collaborate with, it's like you're talking about literally an end-to-end operating system versus like a piece of cloud software that you can just like upload your data and access very quickly. It's a completely different model that say a Snowflake is using, or a Microsoft Fabric is using, compared to what Palantir is trying to create at the end of the day.
Well, what you just said makes me think of Snowflake Fabric can be extended with a click, while Palantir requires some internal politics to actually do something. And my guess from what you said is probably sending someone to a bootcamp is relatively easy, but then after the bootcamp, you can grab a $1-2 million deal for the test, but the real test comes after. So maybe that's why we haven't seen that acceleration in customers that I was hinting at, that I wish we could see, because maybe the customers are trying, they're willing to pay 1-2 million, yet to really see like or even for a new client, they even say, okay, we don't pay, like rather than making a 6-month pilot right now, maybe speculate is okay, 2 months of a free AAP. So maybe that's why we have not been seeing actually customers coming into the customer count. But the big challenge is, okay, let's say you test AP for 2 months. Wow, this is amazing. Then you really need to start talking, okay, how do I actually implement Palantir Foundry in my organizations? So it's not only AAP, but you need the Foundry. And to really develop Foundry, you need to involve a lot of people in the organization. And that is where the big obstacle arrives. Vince, are you aligned with this, or is there something I'm missing?
No, I think you're very correct. The only thing that I would just want to add as a nuance is that, like, we don't know if they're announcing all the contracts that they're making. Like, I don't know, like, it could be, we haven't had the Q4 results out. I mean, Q4 is not even done yet. And I think it's going to be one of the most important Palantir shareholder meetings or earnings report, because we're going to get an answer to this question. Because I think when the contracts are, a few $1 million in size, and maybe some companies, because of the carb derangement syndrome, don't want to announce, that they are working with Palantir. So it could be that they're getting a lot of customers, and it's increasing. We're just not getting the press releases about them.
So straight question: Q4, do you expect to see a ramp up in the customer count, or not yet?
I mean, I would be very disappointed. As you said, like, if you have done this bootcamp with 600 customers, and then you get 10 new customers, then there is something wrong. And I don't know Carp. Like, so far, Carp has come through every time when he has said that, the demand is crazy. We're seeing changes. And I just don't see why he would be bragging about this on TV if they were not closing customers. Unless he just really likes doing boot camps for no result, you know?
So, Matt, is Carp bragging for no reason or bragging for a good reason? Will we see something, a customer acceleration, no revenues, but at least then customer count increasing already from Q4?
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that you can create and get small customer contracts by utilizing the bootcamp strategy. So I have no doubt with respect to that. I think that's something that is inevitable if they've been able to experience the product and see the step change and things that I've been able to see. My fear is that will these things grow into, let's just say, top 20 like contracts? And will there be any other big elephants that are able to be taken down from this? My fear is who's actually attending these boot camps and at what scale, right? Because even if you start, let's say, like let's trial a $500,000 or $1 million deal, right? And you grow it at 30% per annum, it's like, well, it's going to really take a couple of years for that to really actually be meaningful to the bottom line of Palantir. So it's like, if you get a couple $1 million contracts, it's like, that's great. That might be great today, but is that going to be able to help grow in the long term? And I guess that's where I'm kind of headed at, is like, we're getting to the place now where $1 million deal used to be cool to hear about, but now we really need big things to move the dial. I mean, we're talking about Army Vantage cases being $100 million a year and NHS deals being worth, $50 to $80 million a year. I mean, this is the stuff that we really need to get to really move the dial, and the net dollar retention also needs to be accretive to that as well. So I don't know. I feel confident that there's a lot of work to be done, but just because you're signing on more clients doesn't necessarily mean your revenue is going to go in the right direction, right? I mean, that's part of the benefit of what it was. Like, if you think about it, Snowflake has I think close to 10 times the amount of clients of Palantir, but their revenue is, 20% more. So if you think about it, it's like Palantir's average customer volume per contract or per client is way greater than a Snowflake. And then you have to manage, let's just say, more contracts. And is it actually going to move the deal? Yeah, exactly. So granted, that's how Snowflake is set up, right? They're 50% salespeople versus Palantir is very much on the opposite, where they're majority of people that work in Palantir are technical focus. So is that a positive? Is that a negative? I don't know the answer for you, but I'm very confident that going into fourth quarter, we'll see a large growth in customer count. Will that lead into revenue for fiscal year 24? I really hope so. I'm confident that it will, but it's just one of those things where I maybe I'm biased because I recognize what company politics are for what I observed when they were onboarding Palantir to our company. Granted, this is 5-6 years ago, and maybe the environment has changed where people recognize that digitalization is much more important than it was back then. But and let's hope that's the case, where people are much more welcome to admit defeat in IT departments, and they don't have as much of a chest pounding moments as I saw. But at the end of the day, I think there will be a little bit of that, but I think things are getting lighter, just based off what I've heard from Sean, just based off what I've heard from Carp. But I personally haven't observed it, in many moons. So,
well, let me say
my bias could be killing me there.
I've never seen the management this confident in these 3 years so far. I think we can all agree with that. The three of us have good expectations for Q4. So maybe nothing groundbreaking, but I would say a very good continuation, especially on the customer side, backed by the customer, by the bootcamps. And let me add that if we actually see further signs like a relatively old customer like UniCredit, who has been there around for 5 years, willing to expand the relationship for other 5 years, and we know that after 10 years, a customer becomes really big, in the order of, let's say, 50, 100 million per year. The impact of this could be really big if all the new added customers start to increase. I would say, guys, we can end the live stream here. Unfortunately, we don't have with us Amit, who has been fired. I've been said I
literally there was fire. There was fire involved. So literally, he was fired out of the. No, you know what's happening? He actually found the way for all YouTubers. He has his channel. He's passively running it. He's not even involved anymore, and he has
real
like
passive
3
income.
guys. Exactly. He has 3 guys working for him.
Okay, guys, I propose we all start a daily series of YouTube videos where Amit runs the channel for us because he has infinite stamina, and I'm sure we will get a great passive income. Are you on it?
Yeah, I'm in.
Obviously, not only for the 3 of us, Amit has enough capacity to manage the 200 people connected right now.
We just need to have a fake wall, and then we're good to go.
I needed to draw some bricks on the back. So thank you guys for having shared this hour with us. Palantir Weekly number 103 is always insane to think 103 means almost 2 years of Palantir Weekly. So good job for us.
You were saying that Amit got fired. I was looking to play Sean Kingston. I forget what the song is, but it was like somebody called 911. Shouting fire on the dance floor, but I couldn't. I don't know what it's called. Well, I also don't want to get demonetized as well. So,
well, we started before we actually went officially live. Like I joined the StreamYard with a great voice from a great guy. So, Matt, I invite you to close the stream with your voice shared.
Oh God! I was just like, where is he going with this? No. No, not in front of many people. I don't want their ears to hurt. Maybe next time. Maybe if I'm in the zone, I can't do it on command like that. Maybe Vince will sing us out.
Okay, so guys, don't miss the opportunity to put pressure on Matt and to have great expectations for the next time. Thank you guys, and see you the next time from Matt Money, and Vince. Vince was bullish, but I think he's now bullish again. Thank you guys, and see you in the next one.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Ciao, ciao.
So we just leave, no after party. Yeah, I think.